Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining our May webcast to cover education technology items here in the state of Kentucky. We've got a good long agenda, so we'll try to move through it fairly swiftly and combine a few things. I did send an update out this morning. I want to quickly say David will likely not be joining us today. He's at the Council of Chief State School Officers meeting, and I know he's tied up with some activities associated to that. He may try to jump on if he gets a minute, but he set the expectation that it's very likely he won't because he is pretty committed and tied up with some activities going on there. Marty's actually there as well, but able to get freed up. And then Bob Hackworth is there as well, but tied up as well. He'll try to jump on, I think, for some things here in a little bit if he can. I do want to point out that we sent a link to last month's webcast, which we encourage you to take a look at. We had a good discussion. Dave had a good discussion with previous Associate Commissioner Don Kaufman. For sure, the first 15 minutes or so, that is a good thing to watch and reflect on. Don's reminiscing and perspective on kind of where things have been and where they are now, especially as had to do with the Stlp program. So I do encourage you to look at that. On the original invite that David sent yesterday, we had that link kind of boo-fooed. So look at the revised one that I sent out this morning where I sent the reminder out for the webcast. It has a link on it that does go directly to last month's webcast. So try to take a look at that. We have Go Soapbox questions out there. So we'll be trying to reference those as we go through. You can obviously take a look at those and try to respond to those as you can while we're going through the agenda here. But when we do ask you to try to respond to those. It's meaningful if everybody does take a look at those and respond, and obviously can pose questions there as well. We'll be looking at that and discussing those questions as we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Again, I don't know if I said it, but I think everybody knows I'm Mike Lettingham. We've got a variety of folks on here that we'll introduce as we get to different topics from our leadership team and just from our Office of Education Technology group here to discuss and go over a few of these items. So first thing I want to discuss is the newly launched Kentucky Educator Credential System. And I'm going to let Steve Roark take off with that and do a fairly quick overview of it, but yet it is something we think is worthwhile for you guys to have an understanding of what we got launched and what's out there now. It's obviously a significant system, huge impact. Everybody that is a teacher or wants to be a teacher in the state of Kentucky will eventually somewhere or another interact with the system with as well as a lot of other things that we're doing with this Kentucky Educator Credential System. So, Steve, you want to take off?
Sure enough. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for allowing me time this morning to share with you what's going on with the new credentialing system. So I'll share my screen here, my PowerPoint. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. Well, again, good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you making time for me and to share with you information about this new credentialing system. And I thought I'd start off with a little bit of background for those of you who may or may not be aware. But, you know, a few years ago, I think it was 2018, the Educator Professional Standards Board, its support organization of about 40 or 50 people via executive order from the governor at the time, were moved to within the Kentucky Department of Education. And so the board itself, the large board, I think there's 14 or so people on it, that board still exists and still, makes the regulations surrounding licensing of educators in Kentucky. But the support organization came over to KDE, were moved within KDE. And when that happened, they brought with them about 65 or so technical components, various systems and applications and servers and such. And so all of those systems that were housed in EPSB and some that still are what we call homegrown or written in-house. You all familiar with that concept, and you all know that our long-term direction has been, continues to be at the department, is to utilize the cloud-based model, outsourcing model, where we become at KDE more brokers instead of builders. And that has a lot of benefits that I won't bother going into this morning, but you all are familiar with those benefits. And so in 2019, we started the process of a request for information to see what was out in the marketplace to fill the need for what we could refer to as a licensure, which is actually multiple things I'll touch on in a moment, and found a number of providers in the marketplace that provided these kinds of solutions. And so we proceeded on with an RFP, request for proposal, and through the competitive bidding process, awarded a contract to a company out of Nashville, Tennessee, back last April, a year ago, this past April of 2021. Awarded them the contract to be a vendor partner of ours and collaborate to transition to replace and redesign these systems and move them onto Randa's cloud-based platform. You can imagine 20 years worth of programming and in-house written systems. As you all know, many times they sort of de-evolve over time and become cumbersome, hard to update. A lot of negative is associated with that. So in any case, we selected Randa, and they came on board. And key to these projects, these kinds of projects, one of our philosophies is that we have to have in order to be successful, we have to have a very strong presence and collaboration with non-IT areas. So there has to be a non-IT area. We call them program areas. In this, that have to own from a process standpoint the solution after it's put into production and even through the project, of course. And that group in this case is the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness, OELE, which is the department within KDE that houses those 40 or so people that support the EPSB. So that
office supports the functionality that this new KEX system provides. Steve, is what you're emphasizing there, right? What specifically was we've got new functionality that went live on May the 2nd. I believe May the 2nd was the date. What specifically was that, and what can we anticipate coming live here? Just at a high level, kind of what are the phases here?
Sure. So this first phase, we a lot of times we use the word licensure, refer to the whole thing, but in actuality, this first phase was licensure, which involves granting certifications and renewals to teachers and principals. But that also links to a part of the system where legal department in KDE has to get involved and approve license requests. They do background checks and meet other legal requirements. And then there's also admissions and exits, which is about 35 folks across the state that work in the colleges and universities that also interact directly with the system and participate in that workflow to approve those applications. Future phases lead the local educator assignment data report, or that's going to be our phase 2, and that's going to go live. We're planning on this fall, so we're actively working on that phase 2 right now. And then there'll be probably a third and or a fourth phase that incorporates some of these other things that track ed prep program review. That's the review of current and existing educator programs at the universities, as well as student teacher, cooperating teacher field experience tracking, and then finally the board meeting materials for the board.
See, what would we project as the overall time frame that we expect we're going to be implementing things under this umbrella of the educator credentialing system? What's the time frame? And then who do our district technology leaders want to make sure they're communicating with and discussing this new functionality and system that's going to be out there? I mean, who's on point in the districts?
Yes. So the time frame, of course, we're already live with the licensure piece, which is the largest, most difficult piece. And the the second piece will be this fall, and the remaining parts of the system will be live sometime next year. And this first piece, the licensure piece, affects a lot of people. Of course, you mentioned earlier, Mike, all the teachers and principals in the state. There's about 34,000 certifications granted per year. I mean, Kentucky has about 37 different flavors of license. And so before in the old system, all those licenses had to on paper and uploaded to the system. Now it's all online, no paper, and it's sort of an interview type system. Uh, the other folks affected by this that are like, of course, you've got all the people that are applying for certifications and renewals. So that's 42,000 teachers, 3,000 administrators, so on and so forth. 73 superintendents and about 200 HR reps in the districts. Those are the district people that are interacting with the system as part of that workflow approval process. So a lot of times, as a matter of fact, is what I'm understanding, actually the majority of submissions are actually for new licenses are done by someone at the district on behalf of the teacher. That doesn't have to be the case, but a lot of districts do it that way. So, and then in addition to those, you know, the superintendents, the 200 HR folks in the districts, then you've got about 16 KDE staff that are involved in that, and then of course the 35 people at the colleges and universities.
Yeah, good deal. So Steve, speak a little bit just real quickly here to when this launched, there was kind of a misunderstanding or of some issues and so forth, and just kind of speak to kind of what happened there, how that happened, and how we quickly resolved that. You know, again, it was misunderstood as far as what the magnitude of it was, but just speak to that real quickly so everybody understands what happened there if they were impacted by that.
So as I indicated a minute ago, we're doing this project in phases, right? So we're just doing licensure, legal admissions, and exits are live now. So when we turned that on, that still left, you know, a number of functions that are in the legacy system, the old system, that still have to be used in legacy. Now that those old legacy systems applications are not used by people when they're applying for certifications. Okay. So the vast majority of people that are applying for certifications can go directly to kex.education.ky.gov and they'll see the sign-in screen. They'll sign in there and then go through the process of getting their certification. However, this is a new URL, and most people are used to going to this URL, which is long. It's a long URL, but it's linked off of the EPSB, education.epsb.gov, I think is the site, which is sort of, you know, EPSB's public presence. So even though folks didn't have to go through that old login to get to KEX, many of them do because that's where they're used to going. So today, if you go to this URL, you'll be presented with two options. On the left, this is not a real good screenshot, but on the left, you log in to KEX, which will then take you to this, the main KEX system. But for folks that are still working with LEAD or the EPSB board notes or cooperating teacher and those kinds of things, the folks that would log into that would log in on the right-hand side of the screen. So when we went live, people were going to this screen and not knowing what to click. And so we've modified the screen to have a big pop-up that you must close that says, if you are applying for a credential, click on the left-hand side of the screen.
Yeah. And so that threw some people off, and some folks thought that things were broke when they really weren't broke. And so we did recognize that and made some quick adjustments to make it a little more obvious, or, you know, steered folks a little more clearly to where they needed to go to help correct that. All right. Thanks, Stephen. The names of the folks that, you know, that are involved with this, as far as from the other office, I know we got Todd and Byron, Todd Davis, and Byron. Say his last name for me.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Darnold.
Arnold, yes. Sorry, Associate Commissioner. Yes. Marty, yes.
Yeah, before we let Steve go, Steve, it's going very well right now, right? Yeah. I mean, the interactions between folks. Could you just mention real quick some of the highlights and how well it's going? Like, this is one of those systems. It's a massive transition, but we are very excited.
Yeah, if you look here, you know, we've been live for 15 days. We've had 22,000 logins into KEX, about 1,400 averaging per day. The legacy login is just extra information, but there's been 1,400 applications submitted, and we have
That's
different, yeah. Yeah, so it is successful. Applications are being processed. People are getting the certifications. We've had 2 issues that people may hear about, or 3. I might mention real quick. One's the login, so it's really straightforward. And I would encourage anybody that gets a call that you direct them to the KDE website and search on certification, or you can go directly to this link. We'll provide the link after the call, I would say. And then, of course, there's technical support directly Aranda, and then policy support in OELE. So support is all over the place. And these calls that we're getting, so that was the one issue where people were having these problems logging in. That's been fixed, and calls plummeted after that. And then we had about 710 applications that were still active in the legacy system, and this was planned. We knew we wouldn't be able to get them completed in legacy. We had to transition over to KEX to finish there. And about half of those 710 applications, roughly 350, did require the applicants to start over in KEX. Okay. And then the third issue that we've had that I thought I'd let everybody know about, that you may hear about, may or may not hear about, is that at the end of the application process, you pay a fee. It's about $85, as you all know that have teaching certificates. And so when the person goes to make that payment, it's actually connecting to an external system that processes a credit card payment. And those payments have processed 100% accurately. There's been no issue with processing payments. However, there were a number, I think the number was about 400 people, for which a receipt record didn't get back into KEX. So when the person went back to KEX and logged in, they didn't see the status reflected that they had paid, but that's been fixed. So those are the kinds of things you may hear about. So, the login, the 350 applications that got moved over, and about 400 or so records that have been updated and fixed, by the way. That this just didn't show that their payment had been processed external through the system. So that's, about 1,000 or so. I don't mean to be dismissive of it, but it was about 1,000 or so applications that out of 34,000 a year that we had some issues with.
Yeah.
I think it is important for me to just take a moment and go back to this one screen. The effort to process these applications on the part of both the applicant and the people that are involved in processing them has been cut in half. There's no more paper. There is automated renewals. There is, we reduce the amount of data that's having to be maintained by half. Of course, nobody sees that. I was talking to my brother the other day, and we were talking about, you never open up the newspaper and read 5,000 or 10,000 flights landed safely today in the United States. You never read about that. It's like a utility, right? You turn the switch, you want the lights to come on. And so, the security model of this thing, there used to be 315 security roles in the system. Think about that, 315. Yeah. All of us know that's
right.
Crazy. Reduce that to 25. So, and again, out of the 62, old components, eventually they're all going to be retired. We were able to retire 35 of them with this one go live.
So obviously a lot of success, a lot of things happening with this undertaking that we've got, a lot of progress, a lot of positivity with what's being done here, and something for everybody for sure pay attention to. Communications occurring pretty regularly with different folks within the district on this. We'll certainly try to make sure we're keeping up with all of that communication with our EdTech leaders equally, as far as the progress that's being made, the different phases as we're going forward and so forth. So encourage everybody to pay attention, and hopefully we can continue to have a lot of success as we move this forward into the next phases. Thanks, Steve, for the overview and update on the Kentucky Educator Credentialing System recently launched. So let's shift gears real quickly. Paul, following the agenda here, and I am going to switch things around a little bit and combine a few things, but I'm going to try to follow the agenda straight down as much as I can. But Paul, I'd ask that you just real quickly give us a real quick update on online testing, the success we're having, setting records for the number of tests that are being conducted successfully. And again, just give us a quick update and overview what's going on there in the testing, in the online testing world.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. We have several of the test platforms that the district use that cover a variety of subjects, from vocational and CTEX testing. The ACT has moved to a larger online footprint. And of course, we have the KSA testing that all of the 3rd through 12th grade students participate in. So this year, our vocational CTEX testing, we completed 36,038 tests this year online. The track vocational online certification tests, we completed 846. Our ACT online this year, we completed 23,500 tests. And this is the first year that the online ACT test exceeded the paper version of the test. And we are going to continue to move forward to move the ACT program to an all online testing platform. The KSA tests this year, those have gone very, very well. We had a 1-day record of 240,000 tests completed in a single day. Our total right now is 1.4 million tests completed across the state for just the KSA testing. So this year at this time, we have completed 1,494,286 online tests across the state and have reported very, very few incidents. The districts have been very well prepared for this. They have done an excellent job on their end in getting the test sessions prepared. The technology staff and the district assessment coordinators have been working very well hand in hand and have delivered a very successful program.
Good deal. I mean, this is obviously something where everybody needs to get a pat on the back for the success we've had, obviously, in previous years, and certainly as we continue to move forward. And it certainly goes to the readiness and the preparation that's been made within the districts, and certainly with our EdTech leaders being a part of that, along with all the other folks that are involved with how assessments are implemented and how those move forward. So thanks for the update on that, Paul. And again, something for everybody to pay attention to, and something for us certainly to brag on here in the state of Kentucky. I know that it's one of those things that when we talk to folks in other states and so forth, that we do have folks that are paying attention to how we're doing things and how we're able to be so successful with this area for sure. So appreciate it, Paul. Paul, let me go ahead and, again, in an effort of combining things, real quickly, go ahead and speak to the revised building wiring project form, technology form that we recently revised. I know we informed our EdTech leaders that we were doing this and that we were working with our facilities office and so forth. But just go ahead and just, kind of speak to that real quickly. It's out there. I mean, I'm going to try not to say what you can. I'll hush and let you kind of say it real quick.
Certainly. We go through a process of reviewing the forms and the items that we ask districts to provide us information for. And one of those items was the original building wiring checklist form. We've recently updated that to version 5. It's now called the Building and Technology Wiring Project Form, and that better describes what you're using this document for. A good portion of the document is still the same as what you've seen before, so it'll look very familiar, but we have updated some of the fields in it to include some other areas on your district campuses and to be able to address some of the new wiring components like HDMI cabling that may be running into the foundation components of your buildings. We have also, as in the past, are able to capture all of the approval signatures in digital signature format And we've also added a new feature in the form where you'll be able to click a submit email button. And from the form, you'll be able to email that signed document to the next person in the approval chain. So we've worked to make it a little easier to operate. We use this form for being able to see what technologies the districts are putting in at the most basic levels with their wiring and how they're addressing how they're putting in those foundational components. We very much ask the EdTech leaders to please get involved as early on as you can in the building and renovation processes. This will allow you to get those technology needs in at the construction and foundational level of the building projects, and will make getting those technologies deployed in those buildings much easier moving forward. So, please, if you're not involved or you haven't been involved in the past, please make the effort to get in early on those projects. It will help you very much in the long run.
Yeah, and that's, like, to me, the most important message here is to be involved in those activities and incorporate technology-enabled stuff as part of construction projects as much as you can, as much as makes sense to. But you got to be a part of those conversations and make sure that you're proactive in doing that. The tool itself, sometimes it is considered a necessary evil, but there's value in utilizing the tool to one, help identify things that and help us think about things that we might be able to incorporate into construction projects, but also from facilitating the activity and the work. It's beneficial for us to utilize the tools that we put in place, and we certainly have worked hard to make it work a little smoother and be a little less cumbersome for everybody involved. So encourage everybody to take a look at that and again embrace that and be involved with your other folks in your districts that are working on facilities initiatives. Yes, Paul, he's going to say one other thing.
I was going to say one more thing. Included with this document, when we have this finalized on the KDE website, it'll be in the same location as the original documents were. And we have also supplied a guidance document that will walk you step through step from being able to open the document in Acrobat or Acrobat Reader and how to go through the processes of capturing your digital signatures and using the new email functionality. So all of that will be included in that guidance document on the same area and the same section of the website that the form itself will be located.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Paul, and for everything you do and working with the assessment and with our building wiring. I'm gonna say building wiring checklist because I've called it that forever, so it'll take a little while for me to get that right. But thanks for all your efforts on that. All right, let's shift gears here to Marty. I don't know if Ben's joining you or not, but on the remote and virtual learning.
Absolutely, and we're all about sharing awesome things this morning. With Paul sharing some updates there, and the nice part about those mechanics, also, Mike, really cool that our district leaders have given feedback that folks aren't intentionally trying to leave people out of conversations, but the mechanics of that workflow build in and kind of pull all folks in. And these next couple topics are the same way. Yep. I did want to share, and hopefully, Mike, you can see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to share just the Go Soapbox link. Normally we share that in chat, so you can jump to it pretty quickly. But if you're tuned in and you want to join the conversation, please go to app.gosoapbox.org. The access code is EdTech. We always put that in the agenda and hope you can jump to it from there or directly by typing into a browser. There is a pretty good discussion going on right now with some of the questions that we've canned in, and we have 4 questions that we've added, and then 2 additional, like open-ended. So join us there, if you will. And one of those questions that we have in Go Soapbox is getting right at this topic where not just at the statewide level or statewide perspective, but also locally in school districts, there's a lot of planning going on and trying to join all the right people into this big conversation about full-time enrolled online, virtual, and remote students. And we know that there's been some great advancement throughout the state specifically over the last 2 years. And we know that some of this was, pandemic response work that we've talked about in the past. But we also know that you are potentially planning to extend this ongoing, because the idea of enrolling students full-time in an online, virtual, and remote program is working for the right students at just the right time. So we want to just kind of give an update about our next future steps. And to do that, it's really important to hit on where we are today and just reminder of what we have done over the last 2 years. So we had a pupil attendance waiver that targeted the opportunity for students to be enrolled in a full-time program, online, virtual, and remote program. Now, we've always had the opportunity for performance-based learning, virtual performance-based learning, but that only extended down to the 5th grade level. So that was 5th through 12th. So the waiver that we've had in place for the last 2 years really also pulled in the opportunity for K through 4 students. And that was an opportunity and an option for districts to design on. The waiver did 2 things. The waiver added the mechanics for funding that extend beyond the performance-based models that are like a pass-fail model, as a reminder. But it also set in place some elements of high quality. So these are the architect plans of building and designing a high quality program. So those two pieces are what the waiver was after. Our Kentucky Board of Education approved the waiver application to move forward for the 22-23 school year. So for this upcoming school year, you can, if you participated, and we had 140 out of 171 districts participate, you can extend that into the 22-23 school year. But the big question for us was what's next? What then do we do? So we wanted to take this design opportunity and then move it into a full-time permanent opportunity through regulatory change. So the note for today, the conversation that we're moving towards, and we have to start these things a year in advance, but because we know we have a solution in place for you for the 22-23 school year, and we know that 140 potentially districts are participating again, and that application process is open, and districts are submitting. We got 2 additional today. We also know that we have to have a solution in place for the 23-24 school year. So in June, our Kentucky Board of Education has asked for an unpacking of the current landscape of full-time enrolled online, virtual, and remote students. So we're doing that, and we'll have a great discussion at our June Kentucky Board of Education meeting. We'll present some descriptive data as we know it today. And we'll also present a layout of what a future regulatory modification and addition could look like. So in June, we'll present that discussion, and then in August, our Kentucky Board of Education will hopefully be voting on an action item of regulatory updates. That'll be a 2-part regulatory update, where the first part will be modifying the existing reg for the funding mechanism or mechanics, and the second part will be a new regulation that will focus on those quality components of an online, virtual, and remote program for full-time enrollment. So those are the upcoming pieces, Mike, that we wanted folks to be aware of. It is really good work in partnership with our participating school districts. It's been awesome working with districts to say, here's what we're doing today, but we want to upgrade, we want to make the program better, and we're capturing as much as that as possible, and we'll continue to move that forward. So there's a soapbox question.
Yeah, let's look at the question.
Yeah, and Mike, after I posted or I shared my screen, we got an additional, I think, 15 responses. So that's great. like to, and I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And if you can just tell me when you see it.
Yep, we see it.
So, we have about 33 responses right now. Please jump in and add more to that. This is really helpful to us. And as suspected, the majority of folks are just not sure yet if, and what we are seeing right now is districts who they know they have some pandemic response is what we refer to it, of designing that program, but they're just not sure if they want to extend that forward. And that's, you know, that's definitely on the table to understand. If you want to extend that forward, then there's design work involved in that. And in 10 are very interested. So that aligns with exactly what we're thinking. So, Mike,
So Marty, I mean, you know, something that I think about is, you know, for our EdTech leaders is how to be involved in this work. I mean, who should they be working with? I mean, who should they be talking with? I mean, what's the guidance we want to provide there?
That's an awesome question, and this is one that if you've been with us for more than 6 to 8 months, then you'll know that this was a CIO Summit topic as well that helped us build towards guidance on how to get involved in this conversation. So the reason that it's important for our EdTech leaders, number one, there's a lot of technologies involved in online, virtual, and remote learning. There's learning management systems. There's interoperability of student rosters and things like that flowing back and forth, obviously. But we want to maximize the effective uses of technology. We know that a lot of the design work for online, virtual, and remote learning extends into blended learning practices that all of our in-person classrooms are engaged with. You know, we know that we have more student devices in our state than we have students right now. And so there's design work that's involved there that extends into these programs. So you want to be involved. It's interesting, Mike, and I love your question, because as we work throughout the state we think about it from a programmatic perspective, statewide program of online, virtual, and remote learning. It touches, number one, at KDE, it touches every office at KDE. This is one of these topics that it extends into our Office of Special Needs. It extends into our Teaching and Learning Office, our Financial Office. And at the district level, we believe it's exactly the same way, where when we design, or these programs are being designed, everybody involved, everybody at the leadership table needs to have input and understand where it fits in. So to answer your question swiftly, it's if you have a program that is established now, or you hear from other leaders that a program is being discussed, we need to push our way in and be involved in those conversations, not just from a technology perspective, but
don't sit and wait for somebody to ask you to be a part of this conversation. A spotlight on this area for sure. Certainly identified as a lot of need for us to be effective in how we move forward in this area. So certainly be proactive in being part of the conversations. Yeah, Marty, you going to say something else?
Well, I wanted to, before we move to the next topic, I did want to add an additional, speaking of virtual, right? I wanted to add real quick, Micah, an additional topic, just an announcement for awareness. We're really excited, switching gears a bit, but we've had a strong partnership with the Kentucky Virtual Library, and James Allen is our statewide library media lead for all things to do with library media, and he's on our team, and he's a huge resource, and he's a huge advocate for library media leadership throughout the state. He's worked very hard with the Kentucky Virtual Library team, and we now very recent and some additional information will obviously come out, but we have an opportunity now where the Kentucky Virtual Library team can integrate sign in to the Kentucky Virtual Library with your Google Workspace So that's your student and teacher's email address and passwords that they're currently using today. It's a single sign-on opportunity. It is a technology integration, but for the user experience for students and teachers, it's something that we've been after for a while, and the team has done an awesome job. Owensboro Public School helped pilot it, and Henry County, shout out to those EdTech leaders, help nail in the instructions and how to get that done. And it's a pretty quick task, Mike. And so I wanted to mention the name of virtual. I wanted to mention that integration and celebration. We now know that we're increasing the number of members for the Kentucky Virtual Library. Member districts. If you're doing and working with the Kentucky Virtual Library today, you want to get this integration accomplished. And so be looking for that. Good deal.
So Marty, while you're on, I mean, unless you prefer not to, I thought I might just go ahead and skip to you and Jeff talking about Stlp Recap from a recent competition in Lexington. And we got two, just on the agenda, if anybody following the agenda, we've got two different items, item number 6 and then item number 9, both talking about Stlp. I'd like to really combine those, and you and Jeff just kind of cover those topics.
Awesome. But we're definitely combining those. Huge celebration. I would like to say, as I bring, as Jeff comes in to help share, what an awesome experience this year. Huge celebration. All of the volunteers, but I wanted to give a shout out to Jeff. I know he will not want me to do this, but Stlp is more than one person. It's more than a one-day event. But without leadership that Jeff brings to the table, and without thinking and design work, then we're not going to continue to grow. I'm at an event right now that's a national event with a lot of other states. Mike, you mentioned that. And the thing that continues to come forward is that we have a vehicle where students can demonstrate learning, leveraging education technologies in ways that are they're just next level in terms of the value that education technologies bring to the table, and it's for learning's sake. It's not for technology's sake. So Jeff, I would love for you to share that recap, but I wanted to say, again, thank you to Jeff and our entire digital learning team as well.
And I certainly will extend that as well. And we got a large group of people that obviously contribute to that, but it does take leadership. Marty, you're included in that as well. As far as making what we do with Stlp happen. Jeff, obviously, certainly on point, but I know, Marty, you play a huge contributing role in organizing all that as well. So, Jeff, take it away.
Well said, Mike. Thank you. Absolutely. Appreciate everyone's help. So I'm going to hit, we've had a lot of great numbers that we've been throwing around this morning, big numbers with new initiatives we've been working on and things that we can be really proud of. I'm going to throw out only three numbers. I'm going to boil it down to 3. 14th is the estimated number of folks who came together April 20th.
So I didn't hear the number you just provided, Jeff. You froze when you provided that number. So you got to repeat the number.
Really?
It was so big. It was so big.
The number, it's buffering. The number is 14,000 folks. So we knew that we were going to have about 8,000 folks signed up to be at the event. And part of this comes back to, if you remember a few months ago, we got on here, and during the webcast, I had an opportunity to present and talk a little bit, try and get folks pumped up, like January, maybe it was even December. And I asked you then, I challenged you, and through all the regional CIO EdTech leader meetings that we've had over the course of time, I've been challenging you all year. Hey, let's fill Rupp. Let's make it big. Let's think big. Let's fill Rupp. And you came through. Fantastic. Honestly, at the end of the day, Ben and I were having a conversation with the folks from Central Bank Center. And we were just, kind of reeling in how many great folks had been there. And I asked them for an estimate, and she said, we've talked with our security folks. We're looking at, 13, 14,000 people. So in the David Couch world of accounting, I went ahead and rounded that to 14,000 even, because I think that's reasonable. So that's a lot of folks that come together to help celebrate what students are doing with the technology that our leaders are providing. It was a great day. If you had an opportunity to be there, thank you for being there. For all the folks that helped volunteer, we had some some CIOs that really made a huge impact. Think about our bus ramp. We learned a whole lot about what was going on about buses out there. We were having 8 load up at a time, and with some help of some great school-minded folks that have had some experience, be able to say, hey, I think we can get 20 buses in here at a time. That changed everything. So those are the game changers that we experienced throughout the day. Being a new facility, of course, there was a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that we will work on for next year.
Well, and Jeff, I would refer to those logistic things. We expect that. We expect we're going to have to deal with different logistics, especially when the venues changed and so forth. But the content of what occurred was as deep as it always has been, and I think that's just an important point to emphasize.
Absolutely, and I think it actually, even more so than previous years, we went even deeper with the content. We hit a lot, and there's a lot of things happening in STLP, and anyone will tell you that if you're new to STLP, it can be intimidating because you look at it and you think, wow, there's so many different activities and ways we can get students involved. Through the course of, I'm not going to say COVID pandemic, I'm going to say it real quiet, we learned a lot of lessons about how we can take advantage of resources that we maybe took for granted in other situations, where we thought about, how we can take advantage of learning opportunities, take advantage of our digital learning coach network that Laura has spread across the state. 25% of our STLP coaches are library media specialists. We have administrators who are on board. And so really the folks that have completely embraced the idea of STLP, what we've been saying for years, it's more than a club. It really is something that is a overview of how we use EdTech in all of our classrooms, and an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the great things that folks are doing with the technology that our EdTech leaders are providing. And that really, really came to a point, a fine point at STLP State a month ago tomorrow. So that was a great thing. So I said 3 numbers. First number was 14,000 folks who participated. My second number is going to be 1. Because Marty hit on it for a split second, but 1 is, and not just that we're the first in a bunch of things, but 1 in that STLP State Championship is just 1 day. It's 1 day, and the third number out of 365. So we have schools, district students who are participating in doing STLP related activities all year. That 1 day of the 14,000 was bringing as many folks together as we could get. There's a lot more folks that are doing STLP out there, and they're doing it all the time, even without thinking about it. So the state championship ended a month ago. We still have active groups that are still learning today, and will continue to learn throughout the summer and take advantage of STLP summer camps, take advantage of lots of the EdTech that's at their hands. So the folks are really starting, the folks out there, I think we're all starting to really come to the realization that it is not just about that 1 day. It's not about the focus on, how do we get folks there for this event? It's about how is this something that we engage in across the board, sort of it's not a club, it's a culture kind of situation.
Right. Certainly activity throughout the year around STLP. Obviously planning underway for the upcoming year as far as regional activities and the state championship. I mean, that's something that obviously has to immediately be engaged in. Need participation from everybody on that, as we kind of spoke to. I know STLP is one of the things I always feel like I like to mention. That's one of the coolest things I get to brag on, even though I'm very minimally involved, quite honestly. But I get to brag on what we've got here in the state of Kentucky, along with several other things. But I get to brag on the STLP program. I get asked about it all the time whenever talking with folks from other states and so forth. And I know David had mentioned when Don Kaufman, former associate commissioner for OET, came on site, and he was like, well, what else is going on here? He's like, there's got to be something else going on other than just STLP. And he learned that it was all STLP that was generating all that traffic and all of the people and so forth. So it was a pretty cool thing for him. I know he's obviously our former associate commissioner, but a great friend as well to many of us. And so it was really cool for him to be able to come and see that and see where it was in the beginning and where it's at now. All right, any last thoughts, Jeff, Marty, on STLP?
No, just throwing the challenge out there now. I'm starting it early. Let's go big next year. Let's keep it up. Let's think about how we can. We're still collecting feedback from the event for the year, and it's still accessible now. Maybe I'll put it in our notes and our session notes, but we still have. We're still collecting that info. We still want to hear from you. We still want to think about how we can expand, how we can make things better for students, and that's super important. Marty, go ahead.
Well, I definitely include that opportunity for feedback. The one thing that we do every year, and Jeff leads this effort, obviously, is he's in constant redesign mode to make sure that again, it's not one day, it's all year long. And so the STLP year-long experience continues to transition and mold and into new things. And so it's a new opportunity every year, and so that your feedback is just vital for what we do for the the 22-23 school year.
Yep, good deal. Well, appreciate both of your all's leadership in that area for sure. Marty, I know you had another item you were going to talk to. Are you expecting you'll hang around throughout the whole webcast here to be able to hit on those training opportunities and so forth later, or do you want to go ahead and hit on them?
Mike, why don't you just let me go ahead and take that? That'd be fantastic. It actually fits right in line with. That's
item 16 on the agenda for anybody working off their agenda.
I love the flexibility and jumping around through these topics to make sure we hit everything that we wanted to cover for this month. Many of us are actively engaged in planning in professional learning opportunities for our teams, and that's both technically for our technical teams. As an EdTech leader, we're thinking about all of our team members that we want to make sure level up throughout the summer in order to accelerate into the new school year. And also from a learning side, make sure that we have opportunities available for our teachers and leaders. And we always love to put out and make sure that there are tons of opportunities, not just nationally, but within the state, and well attended. There's a lot of excitement, a huge shout out and high five and thank you to KISTI for the year-long, again, multiple events where KISTI leads. But this summer, we wanted to highlight, and there's a Go Soapbox question that over 30 folks have already responded to, and that number is jumping as well. So jump back in there and respond. But there are a lot of opportunities this summer. Huge thanks to Laura Raganos for leading our Digital Learning Coach Summit. This year, we have over 600 digital learning coaches that have received that opportunity to attend the summit, which will be on June 14th. Not all 600 will be there in attendance, but that's at a host school district, and we're extremely excited about the content and the collaboration that'll happen there. Laura has done an awesome job of sharing those opportunities and bringing people together to continue to collaborate and provide opportunities so that then our digital learning coaches can go back into school districts and spread that wealth and spread that love. The Murray State Teaching and Technology Summit is June 7th and 8th. Of course, Fayette County's Innovations for Learning conference is available, and I know every year more and more districts send folks to that. That's on June 1st. The KY Go Digital virtual event is available on June 21st. And then the Kentucky Teach Meet series is the week of July 18th. And so there's tons of events that are available for you to start planning and potentially sending your team or your teachers and leaders to. So we just wanted to provide that. If you go to the Kentucky Department of Education website and just do a quick search for digital learning, there's a calendar that's embedded there that you can see all these dates that are available, and those the events continue to grow throughout the summer. So be alert for those. But Mike, we wanted to just mention that and put that out so folks can continue planning.
Yep, I know. In my Catch Corner message that I sent out yesterday, which hopefully y'all don't see that as burdensome. I'm really trying just to focus on some key things I want to in that message. I try to send out monthly on some key things that are kind of factual type things I want to make sure people are aware of. And I know we do that a variety of ways. But I know I mentioned in that about summertime and having summer fun planned and so forth, but yet we have all kinds of activities. Somebody asked me the other day, I was at an event and they said, "Are you all off for the summer?" And it's like, that's certainly a misconception from way many years ago. Things get busier in the summer a lot of times. And I know that for all of our ed tech leaders, that's the case. I mean, certainly, obviously, we hope everybody can plan time off and so forth, but we certainly have a lot of activities, a lot of opportunity coming about throughout the summer and going into the fall as well. So let's shift gears here, Dee Dee. I'm gonna skip some items that Amy Young and myself will kind of cover. We'll circle back to those. So I'd like to skip to you, Dee Dee, item number 5 on the agenda. And obviously you can talk about the Infinite Campus, but anything else you want to mention while you're talking there as well.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Just a reminder that Infinite Campus invoices have gone out. It seems like we get a lot of times towards the end of the year or towards August and no one's even seen them. If you can't find your invoice, you can always email the KDE Data Services mailbox at KDE Data Request at education.ky.gov. We can provide you a copy. We have those. Excuse me?
I may have done something to make noise. I don't know. Sorry.
I thought I was getting into you while you're trying to say something. So I just want to remind folks of that. You have the option to pay them up to August 15th. So there's not a super rush. You can pay them with this year's money or next year's. That's why we have them bill early to give districts flexibility on that. But we do start following up on that around the late July, August timeframe. And the fewer we have to follow up on, I know the KEs will appreciate not having to be bill collectors. So that is an action item that we end up working with in the early part of the school year. Another thing I want to mention is just a thank you to all the folks that worked on the front door project. We did quite a few updates, some new schools, and we've got that we're working on getting the file over to the Commonwealth Office of Technology now. If you had an update and you just didn't have time to get it in, go ahead and use that data request mailbox to send us a note and say, hey, wait a minute, I need a little bit more time. We will update those periodically throughout the year. It's not a one-time type of thing, but it's an annual reminder for all of us that we need to make sure that we remind folks to update the schools so they will be on the Commonwealth map correctly. So just a few other things. We do have school report card. The financial school report card for the 2021 school year will go live this month. And I think it's actually next week. So that'll close out the 2021 school year for the school report card. We will open up the school report card for the 21-22 school year starting in mid-July with the safety data. And then like previous years, we'll have another opening in August with the non-accountability assessment data, and then accountability assessment data will be included this year. We haven't had accountability for the last few years. It will be included this year in mid-September, and we will still at this point expecting to release the same time frame, early October. But that's kind of questionable because there's a lot of benchmarking that's got to happen and with the new assessments and so forth over the so there's a lot of work that still has to be done on that side of it for assessment accountability. So just want to mention that we are scheduling beginning of year training for Infinite Campus, and that'll be mid-July. So watch for that update as needed. And we do have a couple of open soapbox questions out there. One is on the open house redesign. And we've got, I know when I checked last week, I did have one bit of feedback, and that's always good to hear. So we are in the works of redoing some of those sites. So want your feedback on that. And then any suggestions you have for beginning of your training. If you've got new folks out there and they're trying to figure out what to do to close out the year, we did update the end of year checklist. But, have them reach out to us. We're here, we can help or direct them to the right person at KDE if it's not us. So, Mike, I think I've gone through mine pretty quickly, unless you have.
And if you want to bring up any of those poll questions that you mentioned there.
No, they're just discussion questions. So I think.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dee Dee. In my traditional way of going here, I am going to still skip around a little bit. And at least I'm going to skip you because your stuff kind of blends into some stuff that I said that Amy and I would cover. And I'm going to skip to Chuck Austin and I know Bob was going to join us if he could. I don't think he was able to. So I know, Chuck, you're going to cover the thing. So essentially number 8 and 11 on our agenda is what would be items I think you're going to cover for us.
Well, thank you, Mike. And fill in for Bob today. And, Bob does an awesome job for us, as you guys know, and he's got a tough job at the same time. One of the things that Bob does extremely well is stay connected to all aspects of information and data security. He stays hyper connected to the overall security industry and the community. But he also recognizes the importance to stay really connected to the K-12 community, because we all know there's always a balance you have to strike, all right, and making sure that the end user experience and local districts can actually adopt the capabilities that we're receiving some pressures behind. So 2 things from Bob today. First one, just a reminder that August is the deadline per KAR 702-001-170 to give your local Board of Education an update on your district's cybersecurity readiness. For districts, this is really your chance to make sure that your district leadership understands all that you're doing in order to secure your district and data, and why you're doing all these things, what you aren't doing, and why you aren't doing those things. Such as a lack of staff, lack of finances, and so on. So that way, when or if something goes wrong and everyone's asking why you weren't doing X, Y, and Z, you can point them to this and they'll have their answers. So for those new folks that we've got in the CIO chairs, your CATS engineers will always be your first point of contact for this. So reach out to them for any additional details around that reg. And really, this is supporting probably just ancillarily a big project that we've got going on this year that I want to give just a little bit of an update on, Mike. It's our security baseline project. And really, this is a project that we've been talking about for a couple of months. And it's a project to establish a baseline of security functions around the identities of our adult community. So there's 3 of those words I just want to pull out of that sentence for a second and talk about. So when we talk about baseline, what we're looking to do is establish a minimum standard or a floor, not a ceiling, that will evolve over time as external threats and pressures from cyber insurance companies and some of those folks continue to expand the scope. But it's a minimum standard that we're wanting to make sure we can adopt across the CATS enterprise, across K-12. When we talk security functions, that minimum standard is going to include things like multi-factor authentication, self-service password reset, conditional access, some password expiration notifications targeted at end users so that they have a shot clock or a countdown as a reminder of when to change their password, as well as some threat reporting. And right now, when we talk about the scope of the initiative, it's targeting the adult community. All right, we're focused on teachers, administrators, other district staff, those with privileged accounts. That's the initial focus. So, interestingly enough, we've done a data collection here in the last couple of months. All of you have participated. Thank you for that. And about a third of our districts statewide have already adopted most, if not all, of these functions to some degree, which is awesome. What we want to make sure we can do, though, is provide the assistance to all districts to implement and start to adopt the behaviors around protecting their identities. I love to speak to this as a behavioral exercise because I think everyone can appreciate the necessity for all users within CATS, students and staff, all right, to really treat their identities as a corporate asset that they got to be really sensitive around and protect, especially as we move toward that goal, that longer term goal of that connected user experience, or as we call it, the magic band, where everybody has a single, secure, cloud-based identity that allows them to access whatever they need to access from wherever they're at with whatever device they've got. So we've been working tirelessly behind the scenes with Microsoft. There's 3 different teams we've engaged with. We have a design team that's purely focused on establishing a baseline configuration, baseline, once again, floor, not a ceiling, that will be applied to all Office 365 tenants. We have a customer-facing team that's really going to focus with you guys on the professional learning and the understanding of what we're doing and how to manage that moving forward. And then we've got support resources that we're wrapping around all over the place. So we have an advisory committee, and the advisory committee, which is made up of some just amazing folks from around the state. You should know who your representatives are. Half of them have already done this. And as I like to say, they have the trophies and the scars to show where here's what I did well, here's what I wish I could do differently. And we're going to incorporate as much of that communication and experience into a readiness guide to prepare you for what's coming. We've met with that committee a couple of times. We've met individually with that committee. We're going to be meeting more with them as we move toward pilots and out of discovery. The implementation approach, just for everybody's knowledge, will be two-phased. Day one, which will be scheduled, the Microsoft team will be spending a couple of hours with every one of your, or shall I say, your primary global administrator for Office 365, understanding the configuration that's been placed in your tenant, how to manage that, and more importantly, how to add people to that and start applying these functions. And then phase two will really be at your pace. All right. How often and how quickly you implement these functions across your staff will be something that you determine, you work at your pace, ultimately toward making sure that everybody has these applied. There possibly could be a secondary visit with every district as we're discussing the opportunity maybe to have a pre and post secure score engagement. That's where we can show you how to assess and determine how well you're doing with security functions before and after we implement the project. And as always, your CATS engineers will be your point of contact for any communications, scheduling, so forth and so on. So we're excited about the initiative. We understand that it's going to be a challenge for some. We get that. You know, we're looking to roll between May, late May, early June, all the way out through November. And we hope to have everybody to a point where at the end of this, they can at least look back and know that we've done all we can as appropriate in K-12 to start that process of securing identities. So, Mike, that's kind of a high-level overview of what we're doing. And get back to you.
Talk about lots of activity. This, you know, and all of this stuff is under that big umbrella that I like to refer to as next generation CATS. You know, we talk about next generation master plan. You know, the next version of the master plan. We want to begin working on that. We've mentioned that a few times, so that'll be activity going on. But all of these things that we need to be thinking forward with, and really get ourselves in a good position for the next 5 to 10 years, as far as the CATS program and where we are, you know, where we've been, where we are, and where we need to be going forward, and how we need to get there. So all of the things you were speaking of are certainly under that umbrella. And again, plenty to keep us all active and busy, and certainly important things for us to be spending time on. Marty, I can tell you're getting ready to say something.
Well, I was going to, why don't I go ahead and share my screen so that Chuck can get the Go Soapbox questions real quick. So we have this topic up.
Well, and really the two questions, and they look very similar, okay, but they're really scoped a little differently. You know, question one is really all about, you know, as we establish the minimum standard for adults, we're not excluding students, okay? Obviously, you have an opportunity to make sure that we can better secure the identities of the student population as well. So the first question is just really, you know, how many of you are looking at expanding security functions to the student population? So we're seeing, you know, roughly a third, okay, are looking to do that, which is encouraging. Okay, so Marty, next question. And the last question is really about kind of what I mentioned earlier. You know, there's a lot of external pressures that keep expanding the scope of what we're all expected to secure in K-12. Cyber insurance companies are a great example of this. Lots of discussion around cyber insurance requirements moving forward. Right. Some of you absolutely are already looking at things like EDR, endpoint detection and response, and other factors and functions. We're just curious as to how many of you are looking to go beyond that minimum baseline. So it looks like we're about half and half so far. Great report.
All right, good deal. Appreciate that. Phil, I would like to, I mean, if you've got any comments on that, that topic area and anything else that you want to mention real quick, I want to go ahead and give you that opportunity at this point. If you've got anything to add to that whole topic area and anything else that you'd want to mention. Bill, are you, let's see. There he is.
Yeah, so we're excited to get that started, as Chuck said, and we're doing some things here at KDE also to up our game. And so I just was thinking about the things that we need to do just this month, just to kind of kick those things off, Chuck. And I know I'm speaking to Bob when I speak to Chuck, right now. So
yeah,
you don't look like Bob, but you said all the right things. And so, but we're excited about that, and we're excited about the possibilities of actually, expanding other things as we, go along in the next few years based on that baseline. So appreciate it.
All right, good deal. So Lisa, I'm going to circle back to item number 7 on the agenda and let you kind of give everybody an update on what we'll be presenting at the KBE meeting in August and preparing for that.
Right. Thank you, Mike. I was just waiting patiently. So Marty spoke in great detail about the review item that will be going before the board at the June Kentucky Board of Education meeting. So after we unpack the whole story around the full-time enrolled online, virtual, and remote learning, we will be taking a first draft to the board in August. Normally in August, we only have one item that goes before our board annually. This year we have 3, so it's kind of unusual for us to have this many items going before the board. So as usual, we will have our approval of the Kentucky Education Technology System operational plan, which is where we get approval to disperse our KETS funding through the KETS offers of assistance. And then we will also have that new regulation that will be going before the board. And we will preview those items most likely in July on our webcast. And then the other item we also mentioned earlier in today's webcast about the data security and data breaches. That is included in a regulation. And all of our regulations now go through a 7-year cycle. So this regulation is coming up for expiration. And so we have decided to just renew it, and that still requires an action item of our board. So it will be going before the board in August at that same meeting, just to have a renewal. There won't be any changes to it. There won't be any updates, but it will just be a renewing, and that will put that regulation in another 7-year cycle. We can change it at any time if we choose to. We can amend that regulation, but at this time that's not necessary, so we'll just be renewing it. And so we will have all 3 of those items going. And right now it's a 2-day meeting. They will be having their August retreat. So it's August 2nd and 3rd, and most likely our items will all come up on August 3rd.
Yeah. So obviously the the operational plan that we submit, which essentially is our budget for the KETS program for the upcoming year, that's something that we will share and do an overview with the districts on that between now and then. It's part of how we establish the unmet need, which essentially allows us to do the offers of assistance to all the districts. So certainly something that we want everybody to be aware of, along with the other things that you spoke to there. A lot of activity going on and participation that we have on behalf of everybody on this call with the State Board of Education. So appreciate you being on top of that and giving us an update on that.
Thank you.
So anything else, Lisa? Okay. All right. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
So I know, Amy, I mentioned your name with a couple items that we've got that you and I both have involvement in, and wasn't necessarily completely going to turn to you cover those, but I'm fine with you covering them as well, however we'd like to take them. The offers of us. Well, let me just try to start at the top to keep a little bit of order as far as the way the agenda is laid out here. So we are going to be requesting, and this you'll see this request coming out very soon, to each district for a letter of agency. That's a form that we need that identifies our consortium and our membership in our consortium for the state E-rate application that we do. And we have to do that when we establish new state contracts, state E-rate eligible state contracts. I think everybody is well aware that we're in the process of doing a next generation K through 12 internet competitive process. To be prepared for the upcoming E-rate filing period. And so as part of that, we have to establish the consortium that will be part of that, using that contract and be eligible to receive services from that contract. So again, letters of agency shouldn't be anything new unless obviously you may be new to this because you're new to your work in your district. Our field staff, our CATS engineers will certainly provide guidance and additional assistance information on that. Amy, is there anything else related to E-rate that you know of that we wanted to mention? Because I know we had another item on here about E-rate, but I don't know. I put in the Catch Corner message I sent out about the fact that we did provide a response on the notice of proposed rulemaking that the FCC put out on the E-rate program. And there's an opportunity for districts to, if they didn't submit anything in those initial comments, to send something in the reply comments. So Amy, anything else on E-rate? And then maybe you give a quick update on where we are with offers of assistance and those going out.
Yep. I think you pretty well covered the main topic for as far as E-rate with the notice of proposed rulemaking and what's been provided so far, and the opportunity for districts to submit their own individual district level comments if they do. There's still a window as far as the reply is concerned. But going on down to the CATS offers of assistance, those did go out in late March, and we had 166 districts that were a combination of either they received second offers of assistance, or if they had not yet received their first offer, they received a combination of the first and second offer. However, these in order to participate, districts will need to kind of comply with our deadline that we've had established, and I believe that is May the 28th. And the KEs should be working with those districts that have yet to respond and accept the second offer of assistance, as well as those that had the combination of the first and second offer. Just as a reminder, on the ones that received the second offer, required documentation that's needed for that acceptance would be a copy of your general ledger proof from Munis that demonstrates transfer of funds to Fund 2, Project 162I, if you're matching at this time. And then as well, for that second offer, we do need the fund utilization form that's to be signed and dated by the superintendent. And those two items are required for those receiving also the first round offer of assistance, in addition to an excerpt of their Board of Education meeting minutes, either accepting or deciding to escrow that funding. And again, due dates for the acceptance, if you're in either category, either accepting just the second offer of assistance or the combination of the first and second offer of assistance, is May 28th. So please just, if you have any questions, get with your KE and your field staff rep, and they can assist you with any questions that you might have on that process. And I think that was it.
All right. Awesome, Amy. Thank you. One of the things I real quickly want to mention around our offers of assistance, I know folks, want to know what we can expect for the upcoming year, and so we're working to. I'm always hesitant to say any kind of number until I feel really confident about what the number is. I will say I feel confident that the offer should be similar to what we've seen. I will, but within the next month, either later this month or early June, we will provide a more specific projection of what that offers will be. And it really is part of us submitting that operational budget for the upcoming year. That's really kind of where we finalize that projection. So when we were mentioning that we'll be presenting that to the state board, that's part of what will be included in that. So we'll be sure and provide those projections for everybody. Going back up to item number 10 on the agenda. Again, speaking of all kinds of activities going on, and this kind of focuses on some reporting areas, and I know everybody loves reporting, and we just want to do more and more reporting, as much reporting as we can do, and we want it to be as painful and everything as it can be. So I say all that jokingly. Hopefully everybody understood it. Our intent is to make it as least painful, as least painful as it can be. We want it to really be part of the normal flow of things people do, and so therefore it's kind of a byproduct as much as it can be, but it typically does take some subjective interaction and thinking and collection of information and so forth. So we want to mention the digital readiness survey. That'll be information that our field staff will be sharing more guidance and detail on. That window is July to September, I think, that we try to have that completed in. So more information coming on that. One of the things I certainly do want to point out, and it doesn't impact every district, obviously, but our area technology centers, we are going to have a version of a digital readiness survey that we're doing with the area technology centers. Now, they will be on point for that. The principals essentially will be on point with that. Our career and technical ed office here in KDE is working, communicating with those principals. However, we do recognize we need to provide assistance guidance. I know there's different relationships that exist between the host district and those sites, but regardless of that, we ask for regardless of what your relationship is, to be supportive, provide assistance to them as you can as they're engaging in that, participating in the digital readiness survey. Our field staff will certainly provide support and guidance in that as well. So we just feel like it's important to have that better captured than we do today as far as representing our overall picture for K through 12 and education technology that we have here in Kentucky. A technology activity report, obviously another thing that starts coming into play as we go into the end of the fiscal year. I know we had that mentioned here as well. Is there anything else, Marty or Chuck, that you'd want to mention along this area? So I see Marty saying no, Chuck not no. So
I think we're good, Mike, on that.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
Actually, Mike, I'll mention, just real quick on the digital readiness work that we all participate in, and we know that that's not a compliance activity. That's really shapes our growth, and it ties into our tech plans statewide. And we do expect, and we've received the question on this recently. So I should say we do not expect many changes from the previous year. There's a small section that we're working through as proposed, but it's very, very quick answer stuff. It's not changes to inventory or anything like that. Thank you.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, Chuck.
I'm sorry. You made me think about something. I just want to remind, especially, you mentioned earlier, any new folks that we've got in those seats, the big topics that Amy and Mike cover, especially when you talk about the offer of assistance, you talk about the digital readiness survey, all those things are tied together because ultimately at the state level, every single year we have to identify the remaining unmet need, all right, to the state board so that we can issue offers of assistance and keep the money flowing. And obviously the digital readiness survey, our TAR report, our technology plans, our end of year top 5 feedback are all components of that allow us to establish the unmet need, all right, and to keep those offers flowing. So those things are all tied together as part of a programmatic function that's just super critical.
Yep, very, very important. And it's the things that allow us to manage this program overall. And obviously manage it from an operational perspective of where we are, what we're doing today, but to plan and prepare for the things we need to be doing as we go forward into the future. And so information is important. And again, we really do put an effort into trying to make that not be a burdensome thing or collection of things. So I want to quickly mention before we go to any open questions or discussion items that we need to hit on from Go Soapbox or otherwise, that we are going to continue to follow up on the Stillwell Award. Obviously, David provided and announced the Stillwell Award to all of you all and a variety of other folks that reside within your district for the work that's occurred over the last couple of years. So we will be following up on the recognition of that. And so we want folks to know that. And I know David for sure sees this as something that's very important. And he takes pride in being able to recognize folks. And I know the Stillwell Award is one that he embraces as a way and a mechanism by which to do that. So I do hope that people see that as being a great honor. And again, we will be following up on that over the course of the next month or two. So I mentioned David that, was unable to join us because he's at the Council of Chief State School Officers Summit, whatever they're calling that. I'm calling it a summit, but it's a meeting of folks that obviously lead education technology related efforts across the country. So I know he finds great value and one takes pride in and finds great value in representing Kentucky and being a part of those conversations. So I know that's why he wasn't able to join on Marty's there as well. Definitely sharing the wealth of knowledge we have about how we do here things in Kentucky, but also learning and having conversations with other folks that I know for sure that Bob, as being a security-minded guy, is jawing with other security-minded folks about how we solve all the world's problems when it comes to security-related things. So we certainly appreciate your all's representation of our program there and the importance of that. So any open, who I think Dee Dee and Chuck both were monitoring, Go Soapbox discussion items that's on there that we want to hit on real quick. I see Marty, you're
I wanted to hit a couple questions that came in just briefly. Number one, a comment, great feedback, and I just wanted to represent and emphasize that at the local school district level, districts are and school boards are deciding whether to participate or to design programs for online, virtual, and remote learning, and that is definitely a local level decision. We do not expect that all districts will have a full-time enrolled program. We don't expect that. And so at the local level, if that's a decision that is being made, that's great for your school district. The way that we see it is it's the right thing for the right kid at the right time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that a student is enrolled in for the rest of their career in our public schools, but it could be for a school year while they get through an event or through a medical issue. Something like that. So I just wanted to hit that question and comment that it's not something that KDE is that we are pushing all school districts to engage in. It's an opportunity that if your school district and your leaders and your school boards are interested in designing a program for full-time enrollment, then it will be an opportunity to continue to move forward. And then the second question I wanted to hit, and I failed to mention, I meant to mention, the professional learning events that are happening throughout the state. Almost all of those that I listed, I believe they're all free. And so what they're free to register and engage in. Now, you will have local travel and things like that if you send groups of teachers to those events. The first event that I mentioned, the Digital Learning Coach Summit, that is hosted by us at KDE from our Office of Education Technology. Laura Raganos leads that. All of the other events, they're really partner or school district led. School district leadership led or higher ed university led. So all of those other events that I listed, they're not hosted by KDE, but they're great events that are being offered throughout the state that are all free as well. They're free to register and attend, minus the expense for travel. The other final question there was the funding sources that can go into to those events through ESSER funds or things like that, all tied to professional learning. Great fit for those.
Yep, good deal. Mike. Yep, Chuck.
Well, Mike, there was one more question that got thrown out there late, which I really appreciate, and I think all of us can acknowledge that being a leader in the education technology space, which all of you are, is a blessing and a curse. Because here's what it means. It means that anything and everything that touches technology, we're going to wind up getting involved with some way or another. So the question about physical security, while we don't have the answers at this point in time, I'm absolutely acknowledging that as we focused on protecting endpoints and we focus on protecting identities, there will be a point in time when physical security and its tie to technology becomes something that everyone's going to have to address somehow.
Right.
So, I'm going to go all the way back to Paul Shoemaker's presentation earlier today, Mike, when we talk about the concept of a school technology checklist, all the things you need to consider, all right, when you're doing renovations or new construction projects. Those things are going to come into play at some point in time, and we're going to have to figure out as a community, all right, how we address those in a K-12 friendly manner, especially with all the pressures and issues that we see nowadays. So I just wanted to speak to, thank you, Johnny Step, for that question. It's absolutely something we know that's on the radar somewhere.
So keep in mind, everybody, anything that we reflect on that Go Soapbox after the webcast as well. So we'll be sure to follow up on items, have further discussion on those things. So do know that you can still respond to any of the questions if you haven't been able to do so. I do want to bring the webcast itself to a close here. We appreciate everybody's participation. We will continue to have webcasts through the next couple of months. We know that folks have a lot of other activities going on with personal things during the summer, as well as all those activities going on during the summer. We do encourage you to tune in as much as you can to our webcast during the summer. But we will try to continue to do that. And then just, have a great closing of the school year. I know everybody's right in the middle of doing that. So hopefully things go well there. And have a great summer until we all talk again. We'll hang around here for a few minutes and follow up any questions or whatnot. But as far as the webcast, we'll bring it to a close. Thanks, everybody.